Hi everyone, welcome to our Fireside chat for the month of June. Our guest today is A Kouture, and she is the founder of Fully Charged Allergy-Friendly snacks. She started off the business in Tacoma in 2020 and has gone on to expand, across 24 locations in 5 cities in Washington State. So quite quick and very impressive statistics there. We're going to kick this off with looking at the history of Tacoma and food entrepreneurs, mostly candy makers. So I'll see the great brands that have come out from Tacoma. So that's why I was saying great things happen in Tacoma. So we start off with Denison Chili. So Denison Chili, for those of you that like your chili, was actually founded in Tacoma. So their first manufacturing plant was in Fernhill, yes, in 1925. And you see on the screen the house in front, that's where Tim Strege, the executive director of William Factory Small Business Incubator. For those of you that do know the incubator, that's where he grew up. 6 out of 12 children grew up in the house. So it's quite, nice to see that and learn a bit about, how integrated Tim is into the Tacoma community. Now, moving on to other brands, we see that Mars, yes, the Mars that you and I all know, actually started in Tacoma. So Franklin Clarence Mars and his second wife Ethel V. Mars started the Mars Candy Company in 1911 in Tacoma. Yes, you can see that their first candy was the buttercream candy, as you would see. That was actually created in 1911, and 111 years later, they're this global massive brand with the Skittles, the Snickers, Maltesers. So Maltesers is actually my favorite, but yes, it's the whole range right there. So it's quite, impressive to see that all that started in Tacoma. Now, for the ice cream lovers here, Baskin Robbins. Yes, it actually started in Tacoma. So, Ivan Robbins, one of the co-founders, actually grew up in Tacoma, and he learned the ice cream business from his family's ice cream parlor on 11th and Broadway in Court C in downtown Tacoma. He even, finished from Stadium High School in 1935 and graduated from the University of Washington in 1939. As you'd see on the screen, that is the grand opening of the ice cream parlor. And, a lot of people were excited about ice cream, as we are still today. So that's interesting to know as well. We move on to Almond Roker. So Almond Roker is still very much a Tacoma-based brand, but it's quite interesting that, it's such a global, massive brand. 40% of their revenue comes from international business. They have a strong presence in East Asia. And it all started in Tacoma, Henry L. Brown and Jonathan Clifford Haley met in 1908 in Tacoma, and then they co-founded the Almond Roker in 1912. As you would see, their first manufacturing plant was actually a former shoe factory in Tacoma, and the first Almond Roker brand was named by a Tacoma librarian. So we're seeing this rich history of global brands coming out from Tacoma. Now, going on to great people, for those of you that follow Tom Bilyeu actually has a huge following on his YouTube channel, where he has a very, thriving podcast. Tom Bilyeu is the co-founder of Quest Nutrition, and he comes from Tacoma. He grew up in Tacoma. His family is from Tacoma. He only left Tacoma to go to college in California to study film. And he sold Quest Nutrition to the Simply Good Foods company for $1 billion cash in 2019. Yes, $1 billion. So it's actually a unicorn. And he's from Tacoma, so that's very inspiring, and it's quite interesting to know that. Now to the final person that we are having a conversation with today, A Kouture. So A Kouture and her mom are Tacoma based. Okay, and what we're saying is that they are actually following this long line of successful brands, so I am vouching for them. I know that one day, soon in the future, fully charged allergy-friendly snacks is going to be a global brand like the others that have started off in Tacoma. So if you want to know what that is going to be like, how that is going to happen, then hang out with me for the next 30 to 40 minutes as A and I talk about, how they've gotten here, what the future plans are, and, just how is it going to happen, So that's it, and we'll get cracking with the conversation. Before we start, I would like to thank the Washington State's Department of Commerce, who have sponsored this fireside chat. So thank you to them for making this possible. Now we're going to get A on the screen. So A, if you could, I don't know if your camera is on, but I'd really like to get the conversation going, especially for the sake of time. And just a quick note, we have 3 giveaways today. We have $46 worth of snacks from A's company, and then we have 2 20-pound vouchers to give away. Now, how it's going to work is the Amazon vouchers would be for those outside the US, because A's snacks can only be shipped to people in the USA. So the snacks would be for the American-based people, and the vouchers would be for other people outside the state. So I'll just kindly ask, if you're based in the States and you would want your name to be entered for the giveaway, please just, if you could just type your name in the chat so that we take those names when the time comes and put it into an online spinner. So please put your name for those based in the USA. If you could put your name in the... So we go back, we're going to kick off with the conversation now. Now, when we think about A's business, I think one of the key interesting things to start off with there is that A is the founder, but also she and her mom have co-founded the business. So it's quite interesting, having a mother and daughter duo run the business. I think that'll be interesting to tell us how you manage that. But also, when we go back to your childhood, for you, were there any, role models, entrepreneurial role models that sort of got you started in this field? When I think about myself, I usually say I came from a very entrepreneurial family. So even though my dad was in public service, he still had his own business, and my mom had her own business that she ran. So very early on, I was introduced into that setting. So tell us, A, how was it for you?
First of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me. Hopefully you can hear me clearly. I am literally in the hallway. I am in the United States. I'm in the city of Chicago. I am speaking at an airport conference here. And so I told them before I go to the panel there, I am going to do this here. I'm committed to this. So if I do have to check out after I speak, please forgive me. It's not for any faux importance. I just have terrible scheduling problems. So
that's fine.
But I'm so glad to be here with all of you. The UK is one of my favorite places. So really, to answer your question, starting out, I had no entrepreneurial guidance starting out. My parents were in the service industry. And when I say service, community-based service, my mother was a nurse. My father was a mental health therapist. My grandmother prior to that was a caregiver. My great-grandmother prior to that was a cook and a caregiver. So we have always been in the business of taking care of people. And because they were all in the business of taking care of people, I was not interested in taking care of people. I wanted to get into something that made money. I saw rich people across the world. I used to grow up and I was like, my birthday is the same day as Queen Elizabeth. Like, I knew everything about the family. And I was like, I'm trained in language of the Queen. And my brothers used to be like, no, you're not, so you wouldn't even get on campus. So, in my mind, I had this high expectation of how I wanted, but I always served people. And I realize now on this end of life, now that I'm in my 40s, that all of that was preparation. Because at the end of the day, what I do as an entrepreneur is to serve and to identify the needs of people and hone in on those things, and then use that information and that relationship with them to make sure that they get the products and services that would best, help make their life better.
That's very interesting there, A. Thank you for that one. So it's a case of really wanting to be different, and that's what has set you on the path that you are on now. Now, so if we go back to, so when I
Yes.
read about your, what your path has been so far, I know you started off in the fashion industry. And so having
Mhm.
started off in the fashion industry, how did you find your way in the healthy food industry? How did you, what brought you here?
It was a natural progression, actually. My first job was in retail sales, and I worked in the fragrance industry. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. I wanted to be as close to rich people as possible. I felt like if I was around them, then I could understand their needs and I can emulate them. I'm having a little feedback, so I'm sorry if there's an echo. And so that's how I started. And then I moved into clothes, and then I moved into menswear. And then from there, I got a job working as a concierge at a major hotel. Then I became food and beverage director at that hotel. In the meantime, I guess to your point, as far as being an entrepreneur, my mother had a pastry catering business on the side, and she would make pastry desserts to support sick patients and different things like that while she was still a nurse. So I had always understood baking and food and beverage, but kind of she did that as her side industry, and I was really focused on moving up. I did move up in the fashion industry in the luxury goods sector, and then moved into all levels of luxury development. But I always still couldn't really get a relationship with the customer the way that I could with food. It was something about food and wine and, food and beer. And people just really kind of let go of a lot of the pretentiousness and really showed their true self. And so I always maintained some connection to that industry. So when I was sick and my mother was making food for me because I had severe food allergies and I was pregnant and became very sick after I was born, there was an opportunity there for us to be able to do something with that. And I wanted to be able to help others just like myself. And so I said, hey, let's try this industry. Let's look at going into this industry. And that was kind of that winding path to where I am now. Food and beverage is something that everyone needs, everyone wants, no matter what your social, economic, geographic was. And clothing and hospitality, luxury hospitality, there were still the haves and the have-nots. But I was able to meet everyone at every skill set because we all love, who loves brownies? We all love muffins. We all love biscuits. Like we love these things. So it was just something that really helped me connect better with people.
Okay, fantastic. And that's, usually you tend to find that for quite a number of entrepreneurs, what really pushes them to go into a field, it's their experience. So sort of drawing from your experiences, your food allergies that you have the experience firsthand of what it is to have, food allergies, and you can relate better to people and to customers in that area.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And I will say this too. Let me say this really quick. I've been an entrepreneur in different sectors. So this was not my first entrepreneurial journey. I had a couple of different businesses and different things, spanning from real estate to consulting to food and beverage, what I do now. So I've always dabbled in it, but I really have found, and it's my own personal opinion, the most successful entrepreneurs were those who have been able to connect the dots in their life experience along with their business experience and use that as I call it the seasoning to be able to really create a fantastic entrepreneurial journey and business. When you get into an industry that's so counterintuitive to your personality, and or you get into an industry where you have zero experience, it's already tough enough to be an entrepreneur. It's already difficult. It's financially tolling. It takes you away from your family. So it has to be something that you can really get assistance. I don't want to even call it a crutch, but it's something that at least I knew food and beverage. I knew retail. I knew how to sell. I understood people and customers. When I was doing real estate, it was different. I had not had, even though I, worked in sales, people say, oh, if you work in sales and you can do real estate, like with no problem. And it wasn't true because I had no experience in property management. I knew nothing about construction. I knew nothing about different industries. So I always tell entrepreneurs, when you really look at the success of those who have been successful, if you read and study their stories close, more than ambition, more than drive, more than connections and money, there's something that's innate inside of them. And my thing was my relationship with people. I was always working a people front oriented, centered type job. And so when I got into food and beverage and sales were important, and I know we're going to talk about that in a second, where sales are important, we were able to accelerate growth rapidly compared to some others because my experience in sales and understanding customers were colleagues of mine who was also in product selling business. They came out of completely different energy sectors and industries, and they had no relationship with people. And so it was a little bit more difficult from them. So that's my 2 cents with that. Go right ahead. I'm going to
Okay. Thanks for that, A. If we move on to the next question, and you've touched upon it, your experience in sales, sort of really, because when I listened to your pitch, the pitch at the Williams Factory Idea Competition, what really got me interested in your story was the fact that, you started in 2020, 2 years ago, so just roughly 2 years ago, and you started online. And then now you've moved into 24 locations across 5 cities. So do you want to tell us how have you done that? So can you just sort of summarize that into like 3 key marketing strategies that you've adopted that has helped you scale so quickly?
Focus on a niche. That's number one. Do not do what everyone does because everyone does it. So for example, when I say that, because I was talking to someone first started, there were some major stores that we all know about that they said you should be in these major stores, and every country has a major store. And to be defined as successful among the general public is to go in a store and see you in that major store. And I got pigeonholed by that a little bit at the beginning. It was like, you're not successful unless you're in these 3 places. But what I found what worked for me was to go where the need was, not to go where the want was. And so when you go where the want is, then it's like trying to date the cool guy in school. All of the girls like him and you hope that he'll like you too. But when you go where the need is, I found that there was 3 particular sectors in the food and beverage industry that did not have, that was underserving the markets that I was trying to reach, which was people who had food sensitivities and food allergies. And if I would have went with the popular direction, which is you're not successful unless you're doing it on this scale and in this public platform, I would have bankrupted my business. I would have overcommitted myself because I didn't have the capacity. And then 3, I would have really shortchanged being very popular in a very small pond than being in a huge lake and being lost as another little fish. So the first thing that I would say is I would really say focus on niche. Number 2, I think what's really important is Focus on your individual unique selling proposition. A lot of people give you advice on what's the unique selling proposition for your brand or for your product or for your service, but what makes you unique? Crazy enough, I'm an introvert. I hate hanging out. I'm not a hanging out type girl, but I love to talk. I love people. Like I can catch the random in the hallway. This is what I do. But when I'm in large groups, I'm not as well. So what I found was that one, clicking back in, that was something that comes from my retail background, introducing yourself to individual customers. How can I assist you today? That helped me in my business. My mother, who's my partner, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. She was not a people person. She's not a seller, So she stumbles, she stutters, she has these different personal hangups that she feels like she can't do it. But she can create amazing things, and she's super consistent. And she's the engine that really keeps things going. So we found that knowing what you're good at as an entrepreneur, you're able to really accelerate your company's growth in that area instead of trying to be all of the different areas. And then you'll be able to either get partners or contacts that can help you plug in. 3, I think, would be really focus on what can give you the best bang for your buck. Really focus on that. A lot of people tell you as an entrepreneur, you have to invest. You can't do anything for free. You have to, it takes money to make money. And that is absolutely the case. And I am not going to say that. But there's also a lot that goes into finding those resources that you can really maximize. For us, Amazon was one of those things. It's an American-based company. They have some international outlets as well. Alibaba, other things in other countries, they have their place. And so it takes a lot to get on Amazon, a lot. It's a lot of work in the food and beverage industry because of spoilage and all of these other things that can prevent you. But by doing the work there, we were able to accelerate our growth in ways that we were not able to do when we were selling individually in other sectors. And so what we were finding that customers didn't know who we were. We were a new company. We had no celebrity endorsement. No one knew why we were here. No one really cared, And so they were relying on, well, if you want me to try you, are you on Amazon? Because they were going to read reviews. So we found that was a make or break for us, was the review process. So we said, get on Amazon, get as many reviews as possible, build your brand there, and really utilize what was right there in front of us. It was a free platform. Now they charge a little bit, but at that time it was a free platform for what we were going into. So I would really say lean into those things. I could have spent a lot of money to get a PR manager. I could have spent a lot of money getting influencers to endorse my product, celebrities to endorse my product. But what I really focused on was, how do I take I call it my 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, and how do I stretch it as far as possible? And I think that was one of the things that I would really tell people. Look at whatever it is you're selling in your industry, and what is the place that you can have the greatest impact with the least amount of effort or cost.
Okay, great. That was really, I'd never would have thought of Amazon. So that was very, very helpful there. But also, I think it's quite interesting that you say you're introverted, because you don't come across as an introvert. And I think it's also inspiring to a lot of people here that might also consider themselves to be introverts and see that, if A is doing it, I can do it as well. I think we now move to sort of the interest, not that the fact that the other things you say is not interesting, but it's really your financing. It's quite interesting because you've grown this business. And when I listened to your pitch, you said you've completely bootstrapped. I think one of the strong advocates of bootstrapping is Simon Christman, so he'll be happy that you're doing that. So bootstrapping, keeping the growth organic, just using the money you have available to you and not just taking money from investors, because sometimes, taking investors' money can just take you down a whole different path that you're not ready to go.
Mhm.
So it's good that you're
Mhm.
still very much in charge of the company. So tell us, in terms of the money bits, how have you grown the business? How have you managed your finances without taking on any external money?
One thing I will say that's not popular, and you've heard me say it a couple of times now, is that you have to sell. We sometimes we assume as entrepreneurs we have a great product, we have a great service. If I market it a little bit, the people will come. And that's a complete and total lie. I come from a sales background. I was obligated to have sales goals. And one of the things I told myself was that if I can work for someone else, and the only way that I took care of my family was to meet this sales goal, I have to at least do that for my own business and not make any assumptions. So, one of the ways that we were able to remain bootstrap was that we were sales first. It was our end all be all. When we first started and we didn't even have a real proof of concept to for an investor to invest in, because that's another thing. Like, people automatically assume that investors invest off of ideas because that's kind of what we're seeing with a lot of these unicorn companies now. But that's not really popular. People really invest when they see something that's working and they hear about it and it becomes popular. They're like, how do I get in on that? So I had made the initial goal from the beginning that I wanted to sell 10,000 pieces. I wanted to get product validation to say that I sold 10,000 pieces and that people enjoyed it. I wanted to get 100 people signed up for my newsletter. Like, they weren't terribly high goals. I did my research to ask people, in the food and beverage market, like, when you sell for these chocolatiers or whatever, what are your sales numbers working on the sales floor? So I could, make those numbers for myself. If I had friends that were consultants, how many clients do you have to get a week to feed yourself? So I really kind of backed my way into it and said, first, realize that you're not going to eat unless you sell. That was the first thing. Then, as money began to come in, I really began to create business financial literacy. It's one thing to create your own financial literacy, which is absolutely important. And that is a whole nother topic of conversation with another person who specializes in that. But a lot of people don't put a lot of emphasis on business financial literacy. What does it take to financially have a financially healthy company in your category? What does it take to have a strong company within your sector, your industry? We look at people that are wealthy that say, oh, so and so started a cookie company, I want to be like them. If you go back and you do your research, you'll find out a lot of them were on the verge of bankruptcy. A lot of them did bad partnerships. A lot of them did bad deals, and it affected the business health. So understanding what the business health, what it looks like. When you're a woman, they say the average woman this age, this race, this size should be this weight. They have an index for that. They have an index for that in your business. And so finding out what that is so that you can make good, sound decisions and kind of know what you need to do sales wise, that's, something that we did. Another thing is that we focused on going after low hanging free money. Williams Factory was great. We did not turn down any opportunities at all. He had a $1,200 pitch opportunity. I've been in some pitch opportunities that were 50,000. It for us, we were not interested in the names or the brands. We were focused on connecting in as much as possible with every opportunity that could get us resources without them having to be loaned to us. So really look at that before you look at an investor, before you look at a loan. What is every grant program, accelerator program, training program, education program, and tap into that, because they can give you resources that can make up for things that you would normally have to pay for. And then that enables you to bootstrap. So I got into a program about learning how to legally run your business. I was in that 6-month program. I got an attorney out of it, did our trademark, did our brand registry, set us up, got into another program that was teaching you about accounting and basic business accounting, got with an accountant out of that program. They were able to provide us the setup, and then they connected us with a low-cost bookkeeper who eventually became our CFO. we would have burnt a lot of money in trial and error that we didn't have to worry about because we tapped into resources as well as continuing education and then going after those multiple competition and type of opportunities that allowed us to not have to obligate so many funds. And then the funds that we did make off of selling, we were not interested in creating a great brand. That'll be my last point. We took the resources and we put it back into a great product. A lot of times people are really interested in being an entrepreneur because it looks popular and it looks great on LinkedIn and they have great business cards and they do speaking engagements such as this. You would never have to see me, quite honestly. I wanted to have a great product. So every time I got money, I put it back into what makes this product better. What are my customers asking for? What are my clients wanting from me? And how do I deliver it to them on a larger scale? And so those were some of the things that allowed us the flexibility to remain bootstrapped up to this point.
Okay, great. That's really, really interesting to hear. And it's a case of really making use of the free support that is available. And like you've said, entrepreneurship is quite popular now, and there's a lot of support out there. But sometimes people, because this is one of the key areas of my own research as well, is the role of the social networks that you have. And sometimes a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe it's just that they like the idea of being an entrepreneur, but they don't necessarily invest in looking out for these free opportunities out there, joining accelerators, joining incubators, depending on the stage of your business, and really tapping into those things. So it's it's amazing that you've followed that strategy and you're sharing that it works. It really does work. Now, again, if I go back to the pitch that you did, you said that your projection this year is to get into 15 more locations. That's a huge projection. So as you think about this, how do you plan to finance this expansion if you're not going to take outside money?
I don't plan on financing the expansion. I plan on selling my way into the expansion.
Okay.
And so one of the ways of doing that is at this conference that I'm at right now. 15 locations, on the surface, one-dimensionally, can mean anything to anybody in a lot of ways. One of the ways that I thought that worked for me, going back to what I was saying, being a niche, going where there's a need, all of those things, was that I found that here in the airport industry, there's airports all across our country, And so I think that for me, it was very important to say, how do I go about this? Getting into these different airports, that still is another location. It may not be a brick and mortar store. It may not be a retail shelf, but it's a different type of retail shelf. Now, you run into these issues where, well, what happens if they tell me no? You always have that fear, you always have that, I'm an introvert, so I don't like to be rejected. I am a person that like to cut my losses early, and so I like to go into safe things. And so also taking money from other people, that doesn't feel safe to me. So I'm like, I have to control the expectation. I have to control what's going to happen. So I said, where can I go that I can sell that has the greatest reach? And by doing that first, the orders will then be able to supply the demand, or they will give me the support to increase the capacity. So for example, to kind of get a little detailed about that, because that can kind of sound kind of vague to some, but as it relates to my industry, coming into the airport, they have a special program for women and minorities. I found that out. In finding that out, I was like, well, once I sell, they say, well, if you get into this program, we can help get you in multiple different airports. So now I've hit the first goal, get in 15 different markets. And then I'm just honest with them. This is my capacity. I can maybe do 1 to 3, but what are the educational, the training, and the financial opportunities? When they see that you do your business well, I don't care if you're selling 2, you don't have to sell 2,000 of anything, that you can sell 2 consistent things every month and you do it in excellence. They were like, Don't worry. We'll give you the training. We'll give you the money. We'll give you the capacity because we see the effort. We see the consistency. We see that you're clear about your goals and your expectations. And so now at this event that I'm here now, I've actually didn't do 15 locations. I've now got 37 locations in the 2 days that I've been here, automatically going into the works in September. And one group just gave me 11 locations out the bat. And they told me, now I'm shaking in my boots. I'm not going to tell you guys that I wasn't. I was shaking in my boots when I went to that event. And, you have to give out your business cards. I know no one at this event. It's my first time here. They asked me to speak. I'm like, oh, I'm going to look like, who is this girl? But I was like, just do it. Just tell the story, tell a great brand story, plug the need of what they need in the airport now. And people could hear a clear plan. They could see the ambition. They saw the passion, and they saw that I was willing to do whatever it took to sell a great product. And they said, I'll get behind that. I'll fund it. So I just tell people, when they're talking about funding, you really have to look at what your goals are. What do you want this money for? What is it going to do? How is it going to change the landscape? If all it does is buy you more time so that you don't have to face your fears, then you're already going to set yourself back. My fear was talking to people about my product and them telling me no, and like, we don't want it, or you're a loser, or whatever it is that they were going to say. That was my biggest fear. But as I continue to face it, because I have not faced it, as I continue to face it, and look at, investing in these low-hanging fruit opportunities like grants and things with the pitch competition, that gives me kind of the confidence, the leverage, the experience, the connections, the know-how, like a plethora of things, so that when I go out to opportunities like this, they can also add to my effort and give me the investment that I need. So I'm pretty sure I didn't really answer your question, but how I finance it is really staying focused on the sales and being a great salesperson.
Okay. Thanks for that. I can see that, and Nikki has highlighted there too that one of the problems she faces as well is fear of rejection, and sort of you're doing it, so you've gone out there, and I think everyone has that fear. It's not only me. I have that fear as well when I go to conferences and I know no one there. It's the same feeling. So we all have the same feeling. It's just a case of, I usually say to myself, there are only two responses, yes or no. And if they say no, you move to the next person. That's the only thing that can happen. So Simon,
exactly.
Will there be a time to use investment to scale? Again, it's going back to what the question I was asking. At some point,
yes,
if you have all these orders, you need a bit more money to be able to fulfill the orders that you have. Do you think that you would start looking?
There is a time, and this is actually starting to become the time. Mm-hmm. But what happened is that there is no definition as far as timeline in your business to take outside investment. It all depends on the opportunity. Our opportunity came later. Some people have what we call unicorn products or unicorn services that is an instant sensation. So they need capital up front to meet that demand. So it really, for us, selling on Amazon, selling in person, selling in small line stores and retailers, selling to individual clients, it did not require us to need an outside investment to our wisdom. Everyone understands differently, especially if they're not really a salesperson. But for us, we didn't feel like we needed it. Now that we're going into the airports and we need more money to go into branding and we need more money to go into other opportunities there, yes, we found that getting outside investment would be, critical and a catalyst to really help us do things well. But then it really opened the door to the same question, just in a different way. What type of investment? That was one of the things that I had to ask myself. Like I said, okay, I need cash, obviously, to do more branding. Well, what is that number? what are different ways? Like maybe I need to do bigger pitch competitions. Maybe I need to connect to a VC. Maybe I need to do a subscription service, or I need to do a customer equity program where they can buy shares in the company. Once you start getting into, the opportunities that are there, it will then kind of help you start defining the type of investment that you want. I think a lot of people look at the investments one-dimensionally. Like I go to a VC or I go to a bank or something like that, and I get infused with this capital, and they may get themselves in something that they may not have never even needed in the first place. So I say, let the opportunity guide you to determine the right timing for the investment. And you'll definitely know, you'll know if it's a decision that you're making out of your gut or if it's a decision that you're making, out of your head. So let that guide you, and then start to explore now before the opportunity come, what type of investment, the same way they tell you about risk. Look at those same type. Not all rewards are good rewards. Some are good, some are better, some are best. So start looking at some of those types of investments that you would want to create or be connected to.
Fantastic. Very, very good answer there. Let the opportunity guide your decision to seek external finance. It's extremely important, because something that we see is entrepreneurs start a business and just want to start taking people's money early on and not even knowing if they need the money or not. So it's good that you've clearly stated that. My final question now would be, I'm just conscious of time, would be that, so recently, Mondelez is one of the big food brands. They recently acquired Clif Bar. Clif Bar is a snack company. And so they recently acquired that company for $2.9 billion, after 20 years. But when I read about Clif Bar started in 1990. And in 2000, so 10 years later, they were made an offer to buy them out. So they were offered $120 million in 2000 to buy them off. And so my question would be to you now, 10 years down the line, if you are offered, so if we sort of scale that up and we say if you're offered $500 million to sell your company, would you sell?
Absolutely not.
No, you would not take $500 million.
No.
Okay.
Well, let me tell you this. My mother said, I'm an old woman, and if they offer me the money, I'm taking the money and you better buy me out. So she said, I am not interested. Quite honestly, and I think that this is with every business. When we talk about investment, when we talk about risk, when we talk about reward, it's all about what your personal values are and what you want. No one can define those. Some people, they find value in the money because this was a tool and a catalyst to help them do what they really wanted to do, which may be building wells in Siberia or something like that. So it really determines what your end goals are. My end goal is to be the company that buys other companies. I don't want to be the company that gets the $500 million. I want to be the $1 billion company that gives someone $5 million to buy their company. And so I want to have influence. I don't want to have wealth. And so one thing that I can say, because I love the Queen and I'm on the phone with people from London, and that's totally cool. I'm just going to keep like totally shamelessly plugging that. This is like the totally cool experience. She has influence. She doesn't have the wealth of some other billionaires that are out here across the world, but she is an iconic name and an iconic brand. And of course is an iconic monarchy that will go down in history forever. And her character and her integrity and all of that influences things in the world. I want that for business. I want to say she created 50,000 jobs across the world. She fed families. She sent children to college. She gave women and men skills that they didn't have or helped them redefine skills. She taught technology and robotics as you go into different levels of manufacturing. That was my goal. And so for me, $500 million, as awesome as it is, I'm not going to be high-minded, as awesome as that number is, it doesn't, to me, compare to if I held it that what I could do. Because if I'm worth 500 million to them, I always ask myself, what am I really worth? Because if they're never going to give me what I'm really worth, but they know I may be worth $1 billion, but they're going to give me 500 million, and then they're going to capitalize and put the rest in their pocket, and they're going to capitalize off of my idea, my hard work, my blood, sweat, and tears, and they're going to take my, marketing and all, and they're going to take it to a whole nother level. So I'm sitting there saying, I need to figure out why I'm so darn attracted to them, attractive to them. I need to figure out what they can do with my product. Now, I'm not a fool. I will never have reached that billionaires have. I'm not saying that, but I can dream on that level. I can hope, I can work on that level, because when I go back and I study the company that bought Cliff Bar, they had to start as a family business or as an individual business. They didn't just fall out of the sky as $1 billion brand. They put in 100 years. They put in however long, to be able to get to the wealth to acquire this. So why am I jumping ship at year 10 if it took them, 50 years to get there? Now, my mother is different. She's 70, so, she's in her late 60s, almost 70 years old. And so she can't have the same ambition, that a 42-year-old woman has, so she has to approach it a bit different. So I would say, really, when it comes to being bought out, when it comes to just being an entrepreneurial in general, ask yourself, what's the long game that's outside of money? Because if you're doing it to get money to create opportunity in other areas, then that's a whole different business model. And how you approach selling and developing your business is totally different. And I think that's where people get confused, because they tell people only one dimension, like, oh yeah, well, this is what I want to do. I know one entrepreneur that I studied and followed, they wanted to really do sustainable things and change the earth and work on the earth. So they started this cracker granola company to get money so that they can go around and do sustainable projects. So their whole goal was to get bought out, because they really want to hike through Amazon and all these other places and help the planet. I wanted to build people. I wanted to build a workforce. It goes back to me as a little girl watching my grandmother and my great grandmother take care of old people, take care of sick people. I wanted to be able to do that. So, that's pretty much, that's it for me.
And thank you for your response. I think that was one of the best responses I've had. Very inspiring. So thank you. So quickly, Nikki says, how do you approach smaller local stores? For example, I make my beauty products and accessories. I'd love to find a couple of shops to rent out a shelf or two.
So it depends on the type of store. When we started with small independent stores first that did not use distributors and that did not have huge buying offices. So we were able to talk to the store managers and say, hey, how do you do new products? Ask the store manager. They'll tell you. We use a distribution company, or we have buyers in our own office, or we're carried by a corporate entity. Do your research before you do your ad. So that'll be able to quickly help you determine how you approach them. And then they'll tell you the rules. They'll say, go to our website, send us your sales sheet, have your numbers together, know how much it costs. Don't go and say, well, you carry me in your stores and you don't know how you're going to deliver it to them, how you're going to do it consistently, what it's going to cost to ship it to them if you're shipping it, or what it's going to cost for you to drive it over there. Have the capacity to say, what's your minimum order quantities? Those are all of the things that you want to get information on first before you decide to, make that decision to go forward. Yes. And I'll join another fireside chat again, just to be a part and just to be here for the fellowship. But I really do appreciate everyone allowing me to come and connect with me online, or connect with me through the channels that the organization asks you to. And I'll be happy to answer any question that I absolutely can.
Thank you very much, A.
And let me say one more thing. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. He is the man. And so get to know him, connect with him. He's an awesome gentleman. He has an awesome organization. They've been very helpful to us with just information and insight. So thank you, Tim. I would not have met this wonderful group and this lady without you. So thank you so much.
So I just want to quickly call on Tim. Tim Strege is the executive director of William Factory, and we'll just call on him to give some closing remarks.
Yeah, many thanks to Winifred, to A, and to all of the participants. This is a learning experience for all of us, particularly as we hear the entrepreneurial journey that these founders, many of which have overcome barriers to success, and they describe to us their strategies. And I think each of us have strategies that we can utilize to fulfill our mission. As A indicated, it's not always to make money, but it's to drive a particular purpose that makes us and the world feel much better. So I just want to applaud everybody for participating, and thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that, Tim. So thank you, everyone. We've had 22 people stay till the end. I'll send out the emails for the next Fireside chat. But I really hope you've enjoyed your time, and apologies for overrunning by 6 minutes. But enjoy the rest of your evening until the next Fireside chat. Take care. Bye, everyone.